It is Monday the 13th of January, and for the 10th week in a row, Microstrategy Michael Saylor has purchased more Bitcoin. According to a filing, he's bought another 243 million worth of Bitcoin. 10 weeks in a row, that's quite something. The average price this time, however, was lower. It's 95,972. Now, as Bitcoin has become more of a institutional asset that pretty much anyone can trade now, the legacy markets have a bigger and bigger effect on it. So where we are at the moment, for example, with options expiration week, now that we have options on the ETF, we are affected by that, and therefore Bitcoin becomes more and more affected by this options expiration week. And the thing is, with this week, 70% of the time it's a bullish week. We would expect a rally this week in Bitcoin. One thing I will say, though, is when it doesn't work, or that 30% of the time where it's not a bullish week, every now and then it's a complete doozy of a nasty sell-off. So we need to be careful. But I think at least as we start the week, we would expect the market to attempt a little bit of a bounce. We've got a nice new moon today as well. Quite often Bitcoin likes to turn on a new moon, and we have had, certainly since the start of the week, the start of the year, if we look at this weekly chart, we have started the year with 2 weeks of a pretty nasty sell-off pullback. Still sideways in a sideways range, still holding the support that we have held since the end of November. And so potentially we are at the bottom of a range where we could see a bounce. For me, though, I think I've still a lot of time. If we break down here, the level that I'm looking at is at 85,000 for Bitcoin next. And that is based on a few things. The weekly 20 moving average, that would be quite normal for it to pull back to there. If I look from the lows of 2022 and we do an equal measured move from the low in November 2022 to the high in March 24 and project it from the bottom of this three-wave correction we made in August, we tag the equal measured move at 107,500. And when you do that, especially if you didn't have a reaction at this 61.8, when you come back and back test it, that is where I would expect the market to find support if we're going to keep trending higher. And if we lose that 85,000 level, for me it kind of confirms this as more of a ABC three-wave correction, and we are then likely to see a bigger pullback. And I lean on the fib retrace levels on the whole swing. That means from the low down here. So if I measure from this low down here, let's put them on. I'm going to be looking for where is that 236 fib level as well, and we can see that that's actually, let's make it the same color and put it on the right, where we can see it, same level, 86,300, and obviously it's Bitcoin, a little bit spiky. So this becomes our support zone if we break down where we are. And because today is Monday of OPEX week, I think we might start the week with a little bit of an attempt at a bounce. And if that fails, we continue lower, and 85 to 86 would be the first level where I think we see a little bit of a bounce. And so talking about what MicroStrategy is going to do this week, I think a lot of it is going to be based on what happens with Bitcoin, obviously. This thing about, every time they buy more Bitcoin, they're not diluting the stock. It's not like a stock where they're diluting the holders. These cocoa bonds work very differently, and it's actually, a really bullish strategy when it works. So if we do bounce today, what would say that we're in a bullish reversal and likely to go high? I have to say that these daily moving averages, this bearish cross, is a little bit worrying, and therefore the highs of the last week and this daily 20 moving average at 95,000, 95,800 for me is really key. That's going to be our, we can talk about back to the middle or then back to the top of the range, and we can say we've bottomed if we get above there. If we were to confirm that, I would measure the high to low And actually, we could say a close above 94,500 would be a bullish for more upside, or intraday trading above this daily 20 moving average at 95,600, we would see more upside. So pretty clear where the resistance is. And I just think we're kind of one of those places, you know, very often when you see nasty shakeouts in bullish or bearish in Asian trading before the US gets up and starts trading as well, they quite often, we see an attempt at a reversal, if not an actual reversal. If we were to measure this as a equal measured move from this high, what I would like to see to kind of confirm this is likely to bounce would be a 618 level. And if we do that from here, that 618 level may likely to be more likely to be resistance, isn't it? 92,800. So as we head into the open, because we've already had such a big move, I do think the market will attempt a bounce. And so now I'm going to be watching closely to see what it turns into. Again, just because of market makers and in options and dealers, if we break out of this range, and let's face it, we've been in this range for a very long time, since the end of November in Bitcoin. If we break out of it, they've managed to keep us within it all this time. I think that we could see a little bit of a more volatile, pretty nasty move, because they will have to sell it to hedge. So watch out for that. 86, 85,000, then the first support. But what if that doesn't shoot? What if it gets really leery? For me, 75,000 is really kind of the next level that I'm going to be looking for. And that obviously puts us down to the weekly 50 moving average. But for now, watching to see what the support does here. We're holding underneath the weekly open. We had a little bit of a dance trying to get above it. This is what this orange line is. This was a yearly open, sorry. We've traded above it, got underneath, and I thought I was looking for us to hold above it to keep going high. You can see intraday on the hourly, it was pretty good support, but we are back underneath it again. So that, I'm going to take that off now, because that's kind of not unfortunately working so well. So what Bitcoin does is going to drive what Microstrategy does. So let's find that chart here. As we head into the open in the pre-market, we're trading down at the lows at 310. Now this one, if I take everything off, you can see that we've had a pretty decent bounce from this weekly 20 moving average. And previously in MicroStrategy, this weekly 20 moving average has been pretty interesting support. And we've seen one of those moves where I would expect, you know, most moves in MicroStrategy, the decent ones are three waves. So we've had this really decent move off the weekly 20 moving average. Even if we're going to bottom here, I would expect this to play out in three waves. And so at some point, either we'll, you know, we might come down and double bottom, we might find support here and have another leg higher, but I would expect MicroStrategy to have another go at a swing higher before potentially continuing lower. If I put fib retraces from the August 5th low, when pretty much everything bottomed, we're kind of in the middle here. This 50% though of this swing is pretty interesting support. You can see it was support here, support, resistance, and here we are back testing it. We held a support the last 2 days last week, and we in the pre-market are underneath it. If that now becomes resistance for MicroStrategy, then we continue lower. That becomes a bit of a pivot level. But if we can bounce on the open and get back and recover 322, for me that would be a pretty good sign that we're going to do another leg. And by this I just mean, you know, another swing higher like this, back into the range. So key support and resistance at 322 in MicroStrategy. Big picture, you know, it's going to do what Bitcoin does, and at the moment we are in a sideways correction. I think at least the first month of this year, maybe the first quarter, might be a little bit dodgy and sideways, and we stay. But for now, you know, when I look at these chart patterns and it's all kind of three wave, it all says to me corrective moves. It says not a top, not a nasty bearish reversal yet. So that's how I'm seeing Bitcoin and MicroStrategy today. And when I look at, I'm going to do a big update video separately, but when I look at quite a few other charts, you know, we are at potential bounce levels. This is Aave. Now, if we look at this on the weekly, we could say, oh, well, we haven't come back to the 50% of this entire rally. We haven't come back to the weekly 20 moving average. Why might we bounce here? And simply, this is just a fib level. We bounced from this 236 fib level, and here we are at the 38.2. Also, if I go down to the daily in this one, and we measure this first swing lower high to low, and we project it from here, potentially, you know, this is an equal measured move with a three wave rally here in the middle. You can see that more clearly on the, I always like to make sure the B leg is kind of three waves as well, and that's how it's looking. So potentially Aave could attempt to bounce here. I would only be kind of bullish and say this correction is over if we got back above the 61.8 on a back test here, but this is kind of one of those levels where it might attempt to bounce. If it doesn't and it keeps going lower, obviously we're going to look for that bigger weekly moving average and that 50% level. And quite a few of the charts are like this. Now, a lot of them, not everything is looking great. Certainly some of the meme coins have had a really nasty run of it. But that also means if the bigger ones attempt to bounce, then those little ones will too, and you know, because of the way they move, they could be quite interesting bounces. Okay, bigger video coming on crypto. Good luck.